Do you spend hours painting your miniatures only to fall at the last hurdle, which is taking good photos to share to the world? Well, stick around because I'm going to show you a really easy way to take super good quality photos of your miniatures using just your painting lamp, a simple backdrop, and most importantly, just a smartphone. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Norm, this is the Painters Portal, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to take photos of your miniatures. Now, we see it quite often where someone puts hundreds of hours into painting miniatures and then they come to share the pictures of the miniatures with their following online and they totally destroy that miniature by taking really poor quality photos. And sometimes it's their fault. Sometimes it's the fault of the equipment that they're using or not knowing how to use it correctly, but it's a really simple fix and you can take really nice quality photos just using your phone. So before we jump into looking at what equipment we're going to need, you're going to go onto your phone and you're going to download an app called Lightroom. And the reason that you're going to download this is because this is what we're going to take the photo of our miniatures using, rather than your standard camera on your smartphone. The reason being is that smartphones are exactly that. They try to be smart, but where photos are concerned, especially when you're trying to photograph miniatures, they try to be a little bit too smart, and often the end product of the photograph can be grainy or not very well in focus, or the colour can be totally wrong. And I think that's one of the most important parts when taking photographs of your miniatures. If you spent a lot of time painting particular colours, you want your photographs to do it justice, and unfortunately smartphones can often make your miniatures look a totally different colour to what they are in real life. So what we're going to do is we're going to download Lightroom, we're going to take the photos using Lightroom, and Lightroom allows us to edit our photos to make them look as much like they do in real life as possible. The reason behind this is because the photo is going to be saved as a DNG file, which is a raw image format that is developed by Adobe for digital photographers, and typically it's a higher quality image, it's much easier to edit, and also in Lightroom we're able to play around with the shutter speed of your camera and also the ISO settings. So rather than the smartphone trying to be smart and make the decisions for us, we can manually choose those settings until the photo of the miniature is exactly how we want it to look. Right then, so what are you going to need before we start taking a photo? Well, first of all, you're going to need a backdrop. I'm using this matte white non-reflective backdrop, which is from Amazon. You're going to see a picture of it here, but I'll also post a link to Amazon in the description. This was recommended to me by someone called Chris Paints Minis after I complimented his photos, and honestly, I would highly recommend it. For a white backdrop, it's not reflective at all, and I really like working with it. You're also going to need something to hold the backdrop up, unless you're working against a wall and you can stick it up, but I can't because I'm working on a desk. So I also have this little frame that holds the backdrop. Again, it's from Amazon. I'll drop the link in the description. As well as this, you're going to need a light, and we're just going to use this painting light. We're not going to be buying lights to take photos because we want to keep the cost down. So I'm using this light by Redgrass. It's really convenient to use because it's quite flexible. You can adjust the lighting on it to make sure I can get it where I want to get it, and keep that in mind when you're positioning your lighting. I know some lights can be a bit awkward to move around, but however you're positioning it, ultimately you're going to need to be able to get the main source of the light facing towards your miniature. So make sure you position it so that you're able to do that. On top of this, you're going to need a miniature. Now, when I'm taking photos of miniatures, I like to place them elevated on a plinth, and the reason behind this is because when you're taking photos with your phone, I like the miniature to be the same height as what my phone camera is. So if you can get a plinth that is a similar kind of height to your phone, you know that you're going to be able to take a nice eye level shot of your miniature, and I just like this angle for the end product. And lastly, when we're taking photos of your miniatures, we're going to be using a timer, and the reason that we're going to use a timer is because we're able to set the timer going, we're then not touching the phone and causing unnecessary vibrations which can make the camera slightly go out of focus. And what we're going to want to enable this is something to rest the phone against so that you can click the timer, leave your phone, and it's not going to go anywhere. So go around your room, get something that's going to work. I'm just going to use two of my Artist Opus brush boxes that I can rest my phone against, so you don't need to buy anything specific like this. You just go for whatever your phone is going to fit against. Okay, so now we're going to set up to take a photo of our miniature. So we've got the miniature in place, and we're going to move our painting lamp so that when we turn it on, it illuminates the front of the Mini. Now with the red grass light, it's really easy to do because I've got a gap between the two lights and I can see how well lit the Mini is. So move your lamp into a place where the front of the Mini is really well lit, and then you can just leave that and not touch it for the rest of the session. Next up, you're going to want to stabilize your phone, and once you've done that, we're then going to open up Lightroom. To show you what I'm doing on Lightroom, there should be an overlay of a phone to give you a bigger version of what's going on my screen, but when you go into Lightroom, you want to click the Edits tab on the bottom, followed by the camera icon, and this is going to bring up a camera which should now be showing you your miniature. So once you do this, I like to get the Mini into some kind of alignment, and on the bottom of your Lightroom, yours is probably going to say automatic or auto, and you want to change this to professional because this is going to enable us to change all those settings that we were talking about in the beginning. Once you've done this, you're going to want to try and get your miniature into focus. Now, it's worth mentioning that this doesn't necessarily work the same as what your standard camera will, in that if you get too close to your miniature like I have here, it's quite out of focus, and if I tap to bring the miniature into focus, it doesn't necessarily do it. So what you need to do is start to work your camera backwards until you notice your miniature come into focus and it starts to look really crisp, which for me is about there. When you're happy with how your miniature looks on your screen, we can now play around with some of these settings, and we're going to start off by clicking on the ISO. And we're going to turn this to be as low as possible, which for me is 64. It may differ for you, but 64 is as low as my ISO is going right now. And then after this, you're going to click the tab which says sec, and this is your shutter speed. Now, the shutter speed that you use is going to differ from what I'm using. If you don't have this exact backdrop, this exact light, then what you're trying to achieve is going to be different to what I'm trying to achieve. And what we're looking to do is achieve something that is neither too bright nor too dark. We want it to look how things look to the eye and how they look in real life. So you're going to want to play around with the shutter speed until you find something that you're happy with. And when you find something that you're happy with, I want you to take a photo. I then want you to click the X in the top. I want you to click the tab that is in the top left hand corner and go into your unedited photos. And the reason that I want you to do this is because I want you to open the photo that you've just taken, and you'll probably notice that it looks different to the image of your miniature that you just saw on your screen. And the reason behind this is because the image that you saw on your screen wasn't a DNG image, but the image that you've just taken is. So make note of how your image looks. If you want it to be darker or lighter, then adjust the shutter speed accordingly so that you get that effect. And this may take sort of 10-15 attempts until you find the settings that you're happy with, but once you find those settings, write them down, and that way every time you come back to taking a photo of your miniature, you know that those settings are going to be saved, and you can just jump right back in without having to fiddle around with all this each time. So now you've got the settings that you're happy with, you're going to go back into your camera, and we're just going to make sure that we're 100% happy with everything. So your ISO's set at the lowest, you've got your shutter speed set at something that you're happy with, your miniature is nicely in focus with your camera. If it isn't, make any adjustments that you need to make. And then, as I said in the beginning, we're going to take the photo using a timer so that there's no movement on the camera. To do this, go into the top right, into the camera icon with the 3 dots. There should then be a little stopwatch. I like to do a 10-second timer, so I'm going to click 10. You're then going to take one last look at your miniature. You're going to tap it so that the camera knows that that's where it's focusing, and then you're just going to hit the number 10 at the bottom, and in 10 seconds you know that a photo is going to be taken. Take your hands off, there's no movement, and there we go. So now you've taken a photo that you're happy with, we can go back into Lightroom and you can click the unedited tab and find the photo that you've just taken. You're going to click the photo and then you're going to see a details tab on the bottom, and the first thing that's going to open is something called sharpening. Now sharpening can enhance finer details and edges on your photo, and this is probably going to be set to 50 as a standard. I like to reduce that to the 30 mark, and then following on from this I like to click the noise tab, and noise reduction is set to 10. I also like to enhance this to 30, and what noise reduction is it reduces the graininess of a photo and just gives it a nice smooth look. That's all you need to do in terms of editing, in my opinion. Other than that, you probably took the photo further out than what you would do for a standard photo. So if you click the crop tab at the bottom, you can then go in, crop your image, get it nice and central, bring the zoom in a little bit, and then you're going to click the tick button. Once you've done this, you can go back, and that photo then goes from being in the unedited section to the my edits. When you go on to my edits, you click on that photo, you click the share tab at the top, and you'll see your photo. You can click save copy to device, and that photo is now saved on your phone, ready to share to the world. And this is my end result. The settings that I used for this photo was an ISO of 64, which is my lowest possible. If you can go lower, I would advise you to do so. My shutter speed was around 3200. The sharpening I reduced to 30, and the noise reduction I increased to 30. And this is the photo that I managed to take with that. Now if you want to come back to this video, if you forget any of these steps, the next photo is just a quick step-by-step that you can use as a reference rather than having to try and find an individual part of this video that you may have forgotten. And there you have it guys, a super easy way to take really nice quality photos of your miniatures. There's no excuses now for taking poor photos, and if you are going to use this method, make sure that you tag us in your photos or share the post with me or Dave. I know he's been doing a lot of the painting stuff recently and I'm doing more of the gear related videos, but we really do appreciate it when people take what they've learned from the videos, apply it to their own hobby, and then they tag us in what they've done. That's what motivates us to keep going, and we appreciate it. If you want to continue to support the channel, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, drop a comment below, and we've recently opened up a Patreon and we have received our first patron, who is called Chaser. You absolute legend. So if any of you would like to further support the channel, you can head over to the Patreon. There's a number of tiers with some little benefits. It's by no means necessary, but it really is appreciated for any support that we do get. So check that out. Don't forget, we've got the community Discord server which you can join for free. It's a really fun little space to chat, get help, work in progresses and feedback on your stuff. So if you're not in there, make sure you jump in. And for now, I'll catch you in the next one.